Hello and welcome to another edition of Authority Marketing Live. I'm Melanie Hirschhorn and I am joined by the most amazing artist and children's book author, Kristina Lucia, who is coming to us from not her usual New York apartment. Um, so not used to this background, but I'm so excited you're here.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here too.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so Kristina and I have had the honor of working with Kristina for a couple of years now.
Yeah. Oh,
And to see the evolution of you and your brand it just fills my heart every day. So why don't we start by talking about the idea that you had? It was an idea.
Yeah. So
And
it started
yeah.
off literally with a bunch of crochet characters that I made for friends that were having babies. And when I got laid off from my job and I was already in the midst of a pivot, someone said to me, there's a business here. And that's how it first got started. And I wasn't 100% sure in that moment. And I had this other marketing idea on the side that I was working on too. So I had these two lanes I was working on. And when I pitched both those at marketing events in those couple of months, people gravitated towards the characters. But then I had the unfortunate event of losing my mom. And the day she passed was the day I got the first piece of mail addressed to my LLC, which I filed the night I found out she was ill. And I swear it was my grandma. And I knew it was my great grandma, my grandma, and my mom all saying, you need to do this. And I got all the, you're crazy. Are these going to be too expensive to make? How are you going to make all these characters? But I kept on sticking to my guns and saying, no, the characters are going to lead me to an answer. They may go away and that's okay, but they're going to lead me to more answers. And they did. They led me to, I kept creating more characters and it gave me the room to play. And that room to play led me to like, oh, wait, I'm going to blog about them. I'm going to tell stories through them. And that blog, which I still do write, although the blog's evolved since I first started writing it, that made me realize, wait, I'm also a writer. I need to write a children's series. And that's really how it started. You know, it's like, I feel like when you're starting off, you just have to be willing to play and willing to try things out. Like, I know I told you this analogy I said to the kiddos last week when I was reading to them. I said, I'm like a toddler playing with a shake toy. I'm literally putting things in like the openings and figuring out what fits where. Okay, that didn't fit. Let's try it here. And it's this constant evolution of playing and trying things out.
And so some of your I don't know if you can hear all the crashing in the background here, but a drone may fly by at any moment, so I apologize. Um, so some of the people that you look up to are Fred Rogers.
Yeah.
I believe it's Dr. Seuss a little
Mm-hmm.
bit,
Yep,
or maybe a
Dr.
lot.
Yep.
And your books and your characters really aren't just, they don't exist just for the sake of existing. There's a purpose behind them. So why don't you tell us a little bit more about the purpose, and also give us some show and tell, please, because
Sure, absolutely. So I do have Bella with me. I made sure she came with me because we need Bella. Always have Bella with me. Yes. So I actually I found my real big hook when I watched the Fred Rogers documentary and I realized what he was doing. And that list ironically is expanded because I've always been a huge Walt Disney fan and I've always been huge on Dr. Seuss and also Jim Henson too, because I'm a huge Sesame Street fan. And what all of these artists and creators did is they had a solid concept behind their characters. And all of their characters, it started off with just Mickey Mouse, just Daniel Tiger, just Kermit the Frog. And they weren't fancy. Like I love the story of Jim Henson of how it was his mom's raincoat and ping pong balls. Like it doesn't have to be perfect. And that's the thing as an artist, like we just see scraps. We're like, what can we do with these scraps? And that's really where your solid ideas come from. And when I realized that it was something bigger, and especially Fred Rogers, he really narrowed it down to me where it was really about communication and really talking about feelings. In my own personal journey, I had already been at that point with my therapist for quite a few years. And one of the biggest things of working with her, and when she graduated me to go on to onto like group situations where I'm able to like live without the crutches, basically, my biggest things I took away is learning how to identify and talk about feelings and what a difference that makes when we're communicating. Because it's so easy to get angry. It's so easy to get frustrated. And I know for me as an adult woman, when I feel that way, I need to step back and I need to calm down, because I communicate best when I'm talking like I am right now, when I'm being quiet, when I'm being thoughtful, when I'm able to say without emotion, this is what happened, and not because I am very dramatic and I do add a lot of like voice registers in my voice. I'm well aware of that. So I know for me, especially, I need to dial it back a little bit. I need to calm down. And so when I set out to write these books, I wanted to create a space where I'm demonstrating how children are talking about their feelings. And I also wanted to demonstrate that although we're grown adults, we also need to know how to talk about our feelings. And we also need to give space to demonstrate that. Just because we know how to tie our shoes doesn't mean that we're not going through frustrations in our lives that are similar to that, that we can. And by realizing that, we're able to relate to that little one. I imagine, I'm not a parent, but like, I can tell you how many times I hear at gatherings, what's the big deal? The kid kicked the ball. Like, no, it is a big deal, because that is a skill. That is eye coordination. That's a foot coordination. There's all these things. But if you think about it, when we first learned to type on the computer, we don't learn right away. Like, it takes time. And so the more awareness we can bring to ourselves, like, oh, wait, this took me a minute to learn. Let me give this individual space, whether it's an adult or a child. And the more we're able to do that. And if you really watch Fred Rogers, especially if you go back to some of his episodes, like, he always asks people, can I touch this? Is it all right if I go here? He's not asking for permission. He's respecting people's spaces and boundaries. And we're able to recognize, and that's ideally what Bella's doing. And I personally do 12-step work for my healing, and 12-step work is based on serenity prayer. And as a Catholic, it does coincide with my already very deep and still religious beliefs. I'm very Italian Catholic, and the beauty of I just am. I can't hide it. Look at people like, what do you mean? I'm like, look at me, for Christ's sake. Like, there is no hiding. There is no hiding in my name, for Christ's sake. Like, it's like, what do you think? But I feel like the basis of Christianity, among other religions, and serenity prayer is having respect and space for each other, but also having choice and responsibility. And that's ideally what Bella and her friends are doing. Is they're making choices to take responsibility for their choices, but they're also giving each other space to feel and work through it. And to me, that's what all of these people did. And I've read about Walt Disney, I've read about Jim Henson, and like, I've seen them do it too. And even Dr. Seuss, I've seen him do it. I've seen him like, when he worked with Chuck Jones and whatnot. Like, it's just, to me, that's why they were able to create so much, is because they understood like what their strengths were, but they also knew when to collaborate. And, when they demonstrated so much to like our generation and the younger generations are currently enjoying them right now.
Well, I'm going to say we can put you up along with Jim Henson and because, show and tell, there's some art by Kristina Lucia right there. But also, none of those people that you mentioned are women.
Yeah. And actually, it was ironic because when I first started my pivot in 2018, when I first met my career coach, Matilda, I sat down in that consultation and I said, I admire Walt Disney, Fred Rogers, Ty Geisel, Dr. Seuss, and I think it might have been Jim Henson. I can't remember the fourth I mentioned off the top of my head, but they were all men. And I said, I want to be number 5. I want to be the woman in there. And I have a godchild who's a girl. I have a nephew. I now have a niece. It's like, I owe it to them. And that's the thing you realize too, when you go through your healing work. Your healing work is not just about you. It's about what you radiate to other children, to other young artists like around you. You're setting an example. And unfortunately, in this day and age, we don't have a lot of great examples out there. So I feel like there is more of a need for like a real example, like a real role model. And if I have the opportunity to be that role model to 1 or 2 kids in the world, like, that would be amazing. Obviously I want to do more, but you want to, even if it's only 1 or 2 at first, like, to me, that's a win. That's a win.
Absolutely. Yeah. So you've got a book series, right? And so you brought 3 with you today. But there's so many more, and they're all about Bella, this wonderful, insightful, what else can I call her? Compassionate, empathetic elephant.
Yes.
So why don't you show us? Let's do more show and tell.
Yes.
I have some more books here too, so we can do lots of.
Yeah, we do lots of show and tell here. So I brought my most recent ones with me. So this is number 8 in the series, Bella's Garden. I also brought number 9, Bella Bakes a Cake. And I wanted to give your viewers a sneak preview because we're in the midst of like getting the production side all tidied up. But Bella's trip to Paris.
That was Italy.
Italy. I'm sorry, Bella's trip to Italy. Sorry, Paris is number 7.
Bella's been to Paris, but and you'll see that also. But here's Italy.
Italy. My apologies, everyone. Italy. Bella's trip to Italy. This is number 10 in the series, and it all evolves around the concept of her going through a transition, her learning a skill that can be frustrating and scary for children, and learning and talking to another adult about it. And the adult, again, always relates to her as an adult. I felt that was very important because it's very easy to think, oh, I'm beyond this. We're not beyond this. Like, this is a work in progress. Even myself, I'm always working on talking about my feelings, etc. Like, how do I express myself? How do I let someone know, hey, this didn't sit right with me, blah, 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 And that's what all these books are based on. And the first 3, which you actually have on, which you said you had. So
actually, while I grab those, Bella's rubbing up against your microphone, so you can put her down.
Oh, gotcha.
So I got the first 3 over here.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I've got Bella gets dressed. I've got Bella's big girl bed, which this one is actually the first one.
That's the first one. Yes, correct.
I just did not have them in the right order. I apologize.
No worries.
And then Bella learns to read.
Yeah.
And what's so beautiful, I'm just going to show these off for a second. What's so cool. Okay, so first of all, every one of these is hand painted. So this is hand painted. And then at the back of every book, there are activities to go beyond the book. With parents, children, aunts, uncles, babysitters, teachers, whatever. They're all wonderful, wonderful activities and thought-provoking questions to really continue the lesson that Bella learns and then teaches. So now let's talk about the marketing.
Yes, of course.
So the marketing is, tell me a little bit about how the marketing has been going with us, like what some of the things that you have really, that you're proud of, that you've accomplished.
I think the biggest thing that I'm proud of what we've accomplished together is understanding that as a small business, you need to play many fiddles. And the reason why I say that is I'm doing everything from working on my visibility on Amazon and getting the actual sales up there, and also getting my reviews of all my books to a certain level. So I have the case to go into a store and say, hey, I want to be represented by you. I also have learned, and I learned that from approaching stores, from approaching small businesses and realizing a lot of them want to be on the trend. And so the biggest thing that I feel you and I work on is that you can't fight what's already there. You have to figure out, okay, this is what exists. How do I work with it? Like, what do I need to do to be sitting at that table and have that conversation? What do I need to do to get someone to listen, really listen to me and give me the respect I deserve? And so I feel like that's what we work on. The other thing I'm really proud of learning is when I first started my career pivot, one of the biggest things I learned is how to write a cold email. And that's easy now, cold emails. But the biggest thing that we work on is I talk to so many different people. Like, I talk to manufacturers, I talk to schools, I talk to stores, I talk to restaurants and coffee shops. I talk differently to each of these businesses. And I mold my language, I mold the time of day I approach them. And it is so funny because even though people know I'm doing this, I'm saying this for people out there that are in this boat. Yes, they will not understand that you are playing all these fiddles, and that's okay. And the biggest thing I've learned too from our working together as an artist, and it's ironic, I said this in another interview a couple of weeks ago, I said, as an artist, you do have a gift and that you're able to create a solution to the problem. And I've learned I have to, if I get people talking, if they talk long enough, I'm going to zing into what the problem is. And then I can figure out a solution. And that's like a big thing. Cause like when people hear sales, and even myself too, because when I first started off, I originally was in fashion, went to property development, went into Wall Street, even though I was always an artist. I was always writing. I didn't realize I was, but I was. And my biggest thing that kept me in all these jobs is I'm a good talker and I'm good at looking at people and assessing them as a character to a certain degree and understanding this is their nuance. This is what they want. They're not going to budge. Like, this is just how it is. And when my boss, when I first graduated, told me, like, I think you'd be great at sales, it scared me because I thought sales was pushing product. It's not that. It's about building relationships and it's about solving problems. And the beauty as an artist, like you actually said to me first started working together, because we were brainstorming like the magnets or something. And you said, you can just go to your kitchen table and draw this in 5 minutes. You realize what a gift that is? And like, it's things like that I realized in my journey that like, I don't, but then again, when I'm also communicating with other authors that don't have that luxury, that's another thing I'm learning. Well, how can I create something to solve that problem? And like, so there's always, I think that's like the beauty of it too, is realizing that you have this gift to offer a solution, that you have this gift to offer that. And I think that's where, when it comes to the marketing, it's a saving grace, because like you are paying to multiple fiddles. You can't just play to your Amazon audience, but you can't just play to your school audience, but you can't just play to like your small business audience. Like you really have to kind of work all the channels and keep things going and keep the ball rolling.
So would you say having a guide has made that more possible for you?
Absolutely. Because I do believe you need a third eye looking at things and bringing it up. Like, it's actually ironic because my editor, Susan, who is just how we met, we met through a summit that you spoke at for Susan. Like even things that Susan might say, has said things to me that I'm able to go back to, like, oh my God, we need to bounce off. I think one of the biggest like things about having you as my strategist is when I read John Stamos's memoir, and he's such a good businessman and he really gets the business. And that's where I realized Bella's working her serenity prayer, because when I read that passage about Full House and how the producer, and this guy was on Laverne and Shirley, was a producer for them. So this is like someone that really knows the business. And it was what he said, and when John wrote that, I remember emailing you like, oh my gosh, I had to figure out how to do this for Bella. This is what I need. Because sometimes you only have those 2 minutes, people. And I can tell you how many times I tell people, like, all I need is 5 minutes. Just give me 5 minutes or less. Like, I don't need an hour. Just give me 5 minutes or less. Because you're lucky if you have 5 minutes with these people, and you just gotta keep going and keep talking to people and keep it going. So yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I want everybody to head over to Amazon. All you got to type in is Bella and Kristina Lucia Pezza, and you will find all the books available. Yeah. And thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much. Thank you.